Do you feel that in a time when we are more connected than ever, we are drifting away from real human connections, especially to ourselves? I do. Hi, I'm Leticia Latino, and I want to invite you to join me and my very inspiring guests in exploring ways to reconnect to your essence, to your definite purpose, to what makes you tick. Are you ready? Well, hello there, and welcome to a new episode of Back to Basics. Today, I'm super excited. I have an amazing guest for you, and it's really part of that idea that started with Jane Barron and having a TAP series. I have Marcia Bateson here with me, and she is an amazing person, but she also has so much wisdom and experience. She has close to 3 decades of experience in strategic leadership and managerial roles for corporation and not-profit organizations. She has worked with top organizations, Fortune 50 financial firms. She also advises on strategy, organizational redesign, business, financial solutions, all major issues, and guides toward risk mitigated implementation. She's a former CFO for JPMorgan Partners. She has an amazing curriculum, and I could keep talking. So I'm going to try to cut to the chase. But she also serves on multiple boards, including the Holton Arms School. And she is someone that when I met her and she said that 1 + 1 not necessarily add to 2, but it's 3 or 4. And I say, okay, I definitely have to have her on the podcast. Hello, Marcia, and welcome to Back to Basics.
Good morning, Leticia. It's great to be with you. Really fun.
Well, I'm excited. And, because when I decided to do this podcast, I decided because of inspiring conversations I had with people. And those inspiring conversations were not only about, life and goals and dreams, but also about how can you be successful and stay connected to things that make you tick and that you're passionate about, while at the same time fulfilling, other life goals and dreams that people have. So, of course, when I talk to you, I have to admit you are among one of the few people I met. We met through professional interaction, but I definitely think I'm gonna learn a lot from you. But you said something on our first conversation about, we have to do good for the world. We have to make the world a better place, and I love that because we don't have a lot of that, of those conversations with that angle. So before we jump into your journey, I just want you to briefly say something about that approach you have to life.
Sure. I think it really comes from my family background, but I am a child of a military family. And the United States Air Force gave people always say father, but it was really my parents and our entire family, if you will, an opportunity to take part in this American dream. So, our whole life was about serving our family, my father serving our nation, having been given the opportunity for an education, a master's degree, traveling the world, moving 64 times in their marriage.
Oh my God. Well, that's great because this is really how the interview normally starts, with your background. So I'm happy that, it almost brings it full circle really quick. But so you're originally, where were you born, and where was?
I was born in Paris, France.
Oh my God!
When my parents were stationed over there in 1957 to rebuild Europe after the war.
Wow, that's amazing. And in which what part of the military or was your?
Yeah. My father was joined what is now the United States Air Force.
Okay.
At that point, it was a part of the Army. It was the Army Air Corps, I believe. And he joined when he was 17, lied about his age, and was sent over to England, where he became a bombardier and completed 29 missions over Nazi Germany. in
Wow.
terms of bombing raids and stuff. So,
Oh my God. That sounds
so
like an episode on itself. I'm going to have you over and just have an episode on that.
that was something. So the idea that to this dirt farmer, which is what my father's father was, America gave him an education and gave him opportunity to serve our nation. And so that just is kind of, you know, been the pulse of my life in terms of having had the opportunity to be educated, to make the world a little bit better for me and my family, you know, is what are the things that I can do to give back a little bit to our nation and to give other people the opportunity to have a part of the American dream. So,
Wow, that's that's I guess I have to thank your dad. My family was unfortunately on the other side of the spectrum. Not my family, but my parents' country, Italy, was on the wrong side of history on that one. And my dad, being Sicilian, he remembers. He is from the town where the invasion came into
yep.
Italy, so he remembers. He was born in 1934. So he remembers very well the invasion and, the feeling of, because these are country people that they knew their country was on the wrong side of history. So they were so happy, to see the Americans and, all the allied forces coming in. And it's just amazing what different perspective that gives to you. And I think that's why then eventually my dad also left Italy. Like he could not during that time feel at home. So that's amazing. So now your mom, I guess if he joined at 17 at some point, is she American or she's
No, that's funny. They were the same age. And my mother dated my father. They were high school sweethearts.
Oh.
And he came home, I think when he was 21 on a 2-week leave. My mother was at a radio station and selling war bonds. Everybody was involved in it at that time. Anyways, he came home on a 2-week leave, participated in a poker game to win enough money to buy an engagement ring.
Oh, wow.
That's the story.
I love it. I love it.
And went over to the beauty parlor where my mother was getting her hair permed and got down on both knees and proposed.
Oh my God! I hope they were done with her hair by the time he did this. Thinking on her perspective, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it was a wartime wedding. So less than 10 days later, they were married in Santa Barbara, California.
Wow, and that's why I ask these things. And I mean, I know there's so much we have to talk about, but things were so different then. And then I'm sure they had, as any marriage challenges. I don't know
Sure.
they lived, they were married forever, like they stayed together, you see. And these are the stories that I love because these days we date for years and years. People live together before they get married. And then we don't make it. And I think that proves that there's something else. It's not about, how well you know each other. It's about how much you commit to the idea. I think, of course, there's circumstances and other things. But in spirit, that generation, because I have tons of stories like that. My aunt, she met her husband twice before she married him by power of attorney because he was already in Venezuela and she went by ship to Venezuela to meet him. By the third or fourth time, she saw that she had seen him. She was already married to the guy, living in a different country where she didn't know the language, and they were married forever. And and it makes me think a lot, about as a married woman. It's like, okay, these people really went through a lot.
I agree.
Moving 64 times. I mean, your mom also sounds like a very special person.
It's really amazing, and I too have thought about the difference between that generation and as I see my now adult children sort of moving into marriage. Our daughters was supposed to be married last September, but is now planning, we'll see, to be married this September. But I think about, the choices they make and I also kind of feel that sometimes today, for these young people to have the courage and confidence to make a commitment for a lifelong when the world is spinning at a pace we can't even believe. We can't get a grounding on it sometimes. But then you sort of think about it, and as you say, the experience that my parents had, or your aunt or your parents had, as young people, the world was equally as confounding,
Yeah.
not more so. So it's not. I don't know what the ingredient is, but
yeah. No, me neither. That's why I always ask. I'm like, do you know it? Share it with me. But in any case, so it sounds like you move a lot around as a young woman.
We did. We moved a great deal, and I was actually Paris, France, a fair amount of time in the Washington, D.C. area, as my father worked at the Defense Department, the Pentagon, and then the White House. And then I think a seminal experience for me was when we were transferred in 1968 to Hickam Air Force Base in Honolulu, Hawaii. It's directly adjacent to Pearl Harbor. That was, of course, the height of the Vietnam War, and that's why we were being transferred over there, so that my father could take care of the telecommunications for the armed services. But that was an opportunity for me as a 11-year-old white girl to go into a community in Hawaii, which is, a melting pot or polypot of all different races, ethnics, Hawaiian, sort of Caucasian, Asian, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Portuguese, Italian, Brazilian, German. And at that point, I wanted to participate in this sort of May Day parade that they, sort of a dance and singing festival. And in order to be able to be in the show, you had to be part Hawaiian. And so I was discriminated against because I was Caucasian. That was I didn't know it at the time, but that was a teeny little instance of beginning to feel what it's like to be on the outside and not entitled to all of the inside things.
Wow. Yeah. Things you take for granted, right?
Yeah, really. That was an absolute seminal experience as I look back on it now. I think the other thing that moving around does for young people is that, when you're 11, what do you need to sort of get through the days? Well, you need food and oxygen, but you need friends. You need a friend.
Yeah, yes.
You need a friend to, so I think you get better, or you get some experience at sort of seeing the community, seeing your classroom, your grade, whatever in the school, and observing and sort of figuring out how you can make a friend.
That's such an important point. My husband is Dutch and his family moved a lot, not so much as yours, but as adults, I went to the same high school for 17 years. I live in the same home for 22. Like my parents, once they settled, they created a very stable environment. And he came from something very different. Like he went to Venezuela when he was 15. And in my same city, he moved like 8 times. So I say, you have moved more times around my own city than me. And he told me once something that resonated, that goes along what you're saying. He's like, I say, you don't have like long life friends. Like he has people he's known for a long time, but not those friends that you can talk to after 5 years have passed and it feels like, you saw each other yesterday. And he said, well, I moved so much that I learned that maybe wasn't that savvy to invest in friendships because that was a lost investment, because then I was going to move and then that's it, and that was an approach that I had never thought of. I can see it. And sometimes I just feel sad that there's really people that have to, you find a friend and now you have to move again and then you have to start all over again.
Yeah. I'm familiar with it. And I think it's a little bit of a survival technique because, moving to a place, for 2 years, kids at my school were totally attuned to the fact that the military kid was going to come in, and in a year or two or three, she or he would be gone because their family would be transferred. So I think it's a little bit of a survival technique that you do for yourself to protect yourself.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the perspective you're talking about, like how different experiences bring different, perspectives to the same thing.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And so, wow. But you did. I'm sure you retain some of those friendships because I just can see you being the relationship person.
I think that's, I agree with that. And, I think it goes back a little bit to something my mother said to me when I was 13, and we were leaving Hawaii after 2.5 years to return to Washington, D.C. And I said, Mom, I like it so much here. I get to go to school barefoot. I get to go surfing after school every day. I do have really nice friends, and, Hawaii is, very, very, it's a more soulful, heartful community. And I said, I really don't want to go. Maybe I could stay here and go to school, and you and everybody else could move back. And she said, well, Marcy, I have found moving around a lot that friends or people are a little bit like waves on a beach, sort of they come in and part of your life, you're with them a lot, for reasons because you're in the same city or something. And then they kind of recede. But then, lo and behold, you're transferred to the same place. You end up in the same circle again. And that really happened. So we left Hawaii, and then I went back to Washington, and then I went to Vassar, and lo and behold, I get to Vassar, and one of my classmates from Hawaii was there in my class at Vassar.
Wow. That's great.
And then, you go through life, and we enrolled our children here in a school in Manhattan. And lo and behold, I look across the kindergarten parent body, and there's another friend from Hawaii whose daughter is in my daughter's class at this Manhattan school. So
that's great. I think that was great advice on your mom's side. I think that impermanence kind of feeling that it's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't know. Sometimes I think we hold on to things, not wanting to change things. And maybe that's not a great approach. And I love that advice that I'm going to steal that one because I think it's true. It's a great analogy, definitely. And so you went to Vassar, which obviously is a great school. Did you dream about being something like, was there something already you were passionate about those years that you visualize as growing up?
I have to say this is the sort of the not romantic part. But what I was intent upon doing at Vassar was creating options for myself. When I was growing up, there were 4 of us on a military salary, so money was always tight, and my parents were of a value set that they didn't want to ask for financial aid for private school or anything like that, although we all went to private school. So when I was at Vassar, I thought to myself, how can I, have this education to position myself to be able to get a good job and make enough money so that I can have a more of a comfortable life and not so sort of hard scrabble, so that was absolutely real. I didn't know that I was going to be interested in banking and finance, but when I got out, it seemed like all the banks wanted women who, to work for them who looked like either their sister, their wife, or their mother. So that's what put me into working, being accepted to the training program, JPMorgan, and working there for a while. It wasn't my daughter is becoming a veterinarian, And, that has been her life dream. It is her passion. Frankly, I think it's all she could do because she just had to do it. At that point in life, my goal was to be able to get a job, to make enough money to not have to worry about it.
Yeah, well, but I think I said this also on Jane's episode when I had the chat with her, and I think it resonates with people listening to the podcast because we sometimes think that we have to visualize the full journey and what we're going to be. And this is, and project. And especially as a mom, I try to be very aware of that. Like, I don't want to put something in their plate when they say, oh, some parents say you're going to be this and you're going to be that. And so they plant that seed. And then the kids don't feel that their life is flexible enough to change. And I love the fact that you're kind of aware that, I got into that because it was kind of, it was not the non-romantic approach, as you say. It's like, I wanted a job, but you know what you wanted. And then how you got there was not the defining factor. And then you could adapt to other things through life. As I know, because I know a little bit of what you did later, but I think that's great. That's great that you were not committed or married to one vision, because then that's where people have problems switching or pivoting into something that maybe they're more passionate about.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do. And I was talking this morning with somebody at the school that I'm on the board of, Holton Arms, and we are infusing into every nook and cranny of the school, diversity, equity, inclusion. And we were, not to go down that path too much, but what we were saying is the hardest part about starting is just starting.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Yeah. In anything in life, it's the first time doing one thing. And that's why a lot of people say just start with something small, right? Like one small step, that's already getting you somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. I love that. And I know you took, and you had a very successful career in corporate. And of course, there's a lot. And I know your time is valuable, but I want to go, and you mentioned about diversity and inclusion. And I know you're a big advocate for that. And you seeded the Women in Power for Good event series at Holton Arms, and you for 2019, right? That's when you launched that. That's and you were able to get Christine Lagarde to inaugurate it, right? That's so impressive. I think she did she was there for a year or something. She in Holton Arms at some point.
Yeah. No, she was a classmate of mine. She came for her senior year from France to Washington on I think it was American AFS. It was a foreign exchange.
That's great.
Students. And but and she was what we did at the Women in Power Summit. It kind of came out. We said, okay. Well, it kind of came out of a book that my daughter gave me, and that I know I gave to you.
Yes, and I enjoyed it very much. Yes.
I know you read. It's called Women in Power by Mary Baird. But I kind of realized as I read that book that I was pretty calm in terms of where I was in life, in terms of I'm very fortunate. I have, a solid marriage. I'm on good friendships with my siblings, feel comfortable professionally, academically, financially, socially, whatever. But I realized that I have never been very good at acquiring power and exercising power. And I felt deficient at that. And I realized that I probably had never been taught or even encouraged to acquire power, and maybe had been discouraged explicitly or implicitly from that. So I thought, boy, we gotta, we can't let that, we're not going to make the world look like more we want it to be unless we, know how to exercise and extend our power and use it to do good, to make the world a little better and stuff. So the way the Women in Power Summit worked was we invited 35 alumna from Holton Arms to the school for a day to participate in large forum and then several small conversations with the upper school students about their their journey toward acquiring and exercising power for good. And the keynote conversation was with Christine, and between Christine and the head of school. It was so funny. I'll never forget one of the things she said. She said, if elected to lead the IMF, I will bring all of my skills as a regulator, a financier, a lawyer, and a woman to the job. And it was so interesting that she just brought that right into the conversation.
Yeah, I love it. And it takes courage, because sometimes I totally resonate with what you're saying. And being in an industry that is male dominated, has been male dominated forever. And so there's a balance there where you're liked. And in the book I co-wrote, I wrote something that I realized is not about being one of the boys, it's about being part of the team. So for a long time, I strive to become part of the teams, to be seen, to make them forget that I'm a woman. Yeah. And it took me a long time. And, to the point where they forgot sometimes to strange situations, they forgot that I was a woman, but always in good spirits. And but I'm with you in the sense that I always felt that I still had, like, I don't know, it's not the word is not inferior. And in one of for the research I was doing for this interview, I read one of your bios. I don't know if it was put when you receive an award there at Holton Arms, you were recognized. And I read something that says she was never asked to get coffee, and yet she was never asked to lead the decision discussion. And I think that point is so interesting that I wanted to ask you about that and how that feel and that thought, because it's a very powerful thought.
Yeah, I agree with it very much. And I think for women of my generation, we sort of got ourselves invited into the JPMorgan or the telecom club. And we got ourselves into the door, and we, if you will, got in the room. I'm not sure we were at the table, but we got in the room. And I think, frankly, there was a sense of, okay, we're here. And there was this kind of relief. And then sort of a relief that we weren't being asked to get coffee, and sort of a tenuousness about our position in that room. And, are they really going to let me stay here? And so, what I think happened, or what I know I did, is I didn't rock the boat. I was so grateful to be in the room that I wanted to secure my position and remain there. So, and I knew a way to get expelled from the room was to rock the boat, was to ask hard questions or challenge them.
But I have to say, and I'm not a different, I'm like in between your generation and next generation. So I'm like stuck in there where I can see a lot of what you're saying. And I know it's not the experience of one generation back, but I have to say thank you, because that recognition that women like you had at that time, had you rocked the boat, maybe you would have even delayed even further where we're going down this path. Because then men, let's say, they would have felt more intimidated, and then they would have said, no, let's keep them at bay as much as we can. And because women like you had the courage and the discipline and even the humbleness to say, I could rock the boat if I wanted to, but let me just be happy that I'm part of the conversation. And that's how, now we have a woman vice president, probably thanks to women like you that allow us to be in the room. And then beat by beat, we started rocking the boat one step at a time. And then until I think we're getting closer, although apparently statistically we are hundreds of years away from complete equality. But I think I thank you, because I do see and recognize the sacrifice that women like you made at a point.
Yeah. And we, of course, our generation, stood on the shoulders with of the women before us, the mentors before us. I will say that, I am so optimistic for the future of, let's just call it, having all organizations be truly representative of our wonderful nation. I'm really optimistic about that. And when I look to this, my children, and I see the way my 29-year-old daughter now does not let any grass grow under the feet of her fiance. It is just, it really gives me, optimism and hope that we can make more perfect our political and business and social culture.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And I feel the same way. I don't know if you would agree. My mom is Sicilian, right? So it's very traditional in the role of the woman in the house, and my father too. But I always admire the fact that my father enabled us. And, I came to the States to do my MBA. So he never, it's strange because I come from a family where it's very traditional and the roles were very defined. And my father, it's also very, you are the woman. There are some things you should do. Like my father, if he saw my husband cooking, he would be uncomfortable by that. It's not like he would. It's like he struggles because he's also sandwiched in those mentalities where this is what it should be and now this is what it is. So I know sometimes he struggles with how we, are living. But at the same time, I'm also grateful that he empowered me and my sister to reach our full potential. So he overcame those judgment societal labels. But also, I have to say, I'm very grateful for the example my mother gave me, because I'm at home. And when I do those womanly things, I do it because I want to. And I love to cook for my family. I clean my house. I kind of do those things that my mom taught me. And I don't take it as a lesser thing. I take it as, yes, in the world of the woman, we are nurturers. And I see that as part of nurturing my family.
That's so well said. And I completely agree, and the lessons and the examples that each of our parents, gave to us. Your mother, my mother as well, took joy and pride in nurturing her family and creating an environment that was safe and calm.
Yeah. And also because my fear as a woman is I really feel we have the nurturing chip that men don't have.
Absolutely.
So in our struggle for equality, my fear is that we also forget that. And we try to be equal at one level, but then we completely disregard that other level that, men are not striving to be equal or they don't even have the chip. They're not wired for those things. And so my biggest fear in my own life, it's I don't want to forget that I do have certain things that came with being a woman that make the difference in the family, and then I went to Catholic school, and I remember one of the, the nuns that led, many years ago, she's a saint, Santa Teresa of Avila. She said, the woman is the heart of the family. And I really see it like that. I think in our wiring, we have something extra. So.
Absolutely. I know what you mean about in the striving to realize your dream, to get the promotion, to run the company, whatever, are you going to lose your essence, the heart of what it is to be a woman? I remember driving down a street in Chicago one day, and I saw this woman, must have been the 80s. She was dressed perfectly, high heels, nylons, the suit. She was carrying a little briefcase. And she stepped across and she spoke, she strode very purposefully and in a way, well, to me, it appeared brittle. And I thought to myself, am I becoming that woman? I cannot become that. I'm scared.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for that. That's for me. So I always say I come across like a feminist, I push diversity. I push all those things, but I can also don't want to forget. And I try for other women not to forget that we also have a special calling, and the family and the home, and creating a warm home for our families. I think in a big way, it's our job, also our responsibility.
I entirely agree. And it's, and it's fun. One of the things that I wonder about is, can we if you will, and it's one of the reasons I'm so intrigued by the work that Jane is doing on the acceleration project TAP, as we move further and further into the workforce, can we bring to the business community, the economy, the political system, can we bring to that our collaborative, nurturing approach? And can it eclipse the sort of win at all cost kind of zero-sum game that you might say as a male exists and dominates in the male business world? Can we bring all that we are as women into the workforce and change the composition, if you will, at the molecular level, or change the way, if you will, business is done?
Yeah, I think so. I really think so. That's why, and I think it's perfect that you mentioned Jane and the acceleration program, because that's part of why I wanted to get involved, thanks to your invitation to join and try to take, the program to more places and help more underserved small businesses. Because I do think that she's onto something, and that there's qualities in that program that really bring up a lot of those nurturing things that you were mentioning. So why don't you share anything you want about the acceleration program and the work? I know you're passionate about that too.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I'm going to kind of preface it by saying that, by drawing a distinction. I've been on the board of a very prestigious not-for-profit here in New York. It's 100 years old. It's dominated by white men in the construction and the engineering and real estate trade. And I've been sitting on the executive committee of that board for, 4 or 5 years. And I realized that although I'm in the room and I'm at the table, I have to work to inject my voice into the conversation. I'm not invited into the conversation. I have to poke to insert whatever I want to say, and whatever I say is not often echoed or built upon by other people around. Mm-hmm. It's kind of dies.
Yeah.
And it's to me is so interesting, because I compare it to working at TAP on the President's Council and the board there, where I feel that that our conversations at the executive level, committee level, or the President's Council level are collaborative and inviting to every voice in the room. And it's a very, very big difference to me, to the extent that I've decided to roll off the prestigious one, mm-hmm. And put more energy and time and thinking into, to TAP and Holton Arms and others where there's an invitation to participate and engage.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think when we realize what we can achieve when you work with people that you like, that you enjoy, that have similar mindset, it's so invigorating, and you can achieve way more than when you, as you say, you're sitting at the table, but is this enough? And that's my whole thing with the diversity process that we're living as a vendor. I'm a vendor to big companies, such as Ericsson and T-Mobile. And and I'm afraid that we are so early on in we want diversity, but they just want it in paper. Like, they want more diverse companies to be registered, but then do they really want those diverse companies to be the one executing the work? And I don't think we are there yet. And it's, and I feel, I know what you're saying, because it's almost like they invited you to the party, but then, it's like you don't get a drink, or you're like on your own and see okay, you're here, see what you want to do.
Okay, check that box.
See you later.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of and yet, women do have the collaborative, nurturing, let's all rise up, sort of gene, let's all go up together. I really think we do. And I do feel that skill or that trait is in demand by our nation and our planet more than any time, maybe since World War II. I'm not sure. Anyway, so can we inject ourselves, our whole selves, into these platforms? I don't think we have any choice but to try because
and it's exciting to try, right?
Yeah, and giving half of yourself to an organization, or because that's all they want, or that's all you feel comfortable giving, you feel safe giving. At my age, it's just not satisfying at all.
Oh, and that's great. I think it's inspiring. It's inspiring the work that you're doing, and I think you're already making a difference, at least for what I've seen in TAP, into bringing people together and creating something that can be special and that can really make a difference. And in my case, I welcome the invitation because, like you, I feel like I've been fortunate. I'm doing a lot, and I'm still trying to grow my company to where it needs to be. But I feel I can help more. Like, even whatever I do, I help. I try to mentor young women and all that. But I think, wow, there's probably more that I could be doing. And this is like a great platform that, does exactly that and puts a lot of powerful components like consultants, people that are volunteering. And we talk about it with Jane. We put the word out there because I think there's other people out there that have that same feeling that, I could be doing more, but they don't know where to go or who to ask. And I think just by augmenting, the mission and the program to, and outreaching, I think that's already very valuable.
Yeah. And the way, kind of, solve two problems at once. Once there's this problem of retail, small business, women-owned, minority-owned businesses were struggling, with the internet sort of coming at them. So that's a problem. How do you help that? How do you help them? And yet small businesses are, of course, the lifeblood of our communities. And then on the other hand, there's all these women, if you will, who have had the benefit of being trained, at the top MBA schools, or trained by American Express or BCG or McKinsey or JPMorgan or however, all of that talent, and sort of looking, and having stepped off of that for whatever reason, to raise a family, to they got tired of the soul crushing banker life or whatever, and yet they have all this experience and perspective and talent. How can what's a platform that we can create to give them an opportunity to exercise their skills, and bringing the two together, the consultants, engaging with the small business owners. Wow. I mean, to me, that's just kind of magic that Jane was able to launch that, and, now to see it growing, to California and hopefully to Florida and Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, etc. It's really genius that she did that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. And I'm looking forward to 2021 and what, the businesses it will help. And it's definitely a time where it's very needed given the circumstances. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, Marcia, I always end with two things. One is I give you an open microphone to say anything about any other projects, any other things. I know now your daughter is getting married, so that's exciting in itself. It's anything else professionally or personally that you want to share of all the good work you do also on the boards of the schools.
Yeah, I feel I am so worried about our nation at this moment that I wish to get through the next 13 days. I do wish to, with a new administration, a new year, a newer awareness, to come together and build back our country, our nation, and do it better, and do it with more fairness, with more equity, with more kindness. And, I'm kind of searching around for a way to be involved in that. So
Great.
if you have any ideas, I really am sort of trying to figure out how I can participate in the rebuilding of a better America.
We will be lucky. And just for perspective, we're taping these just 2 days after what happened in our capital. So we at the very beginning offline, we were just sharing those thoughts. By the time, hopefully, that this interview will air, we will have a new president and just to get our country to a kinder spot. I think regardless of which side you're in, I think just the country needs more kindness, and we need to just start loving each other. And yes, and I totally see how someone like you would make such a difference, Marcia, because you don't have that many people, as I say, you don't have that many people with your background, with your track record, with your professional experience, with your worldview that is thinking kindness, that is thinking those kind of words. And I definitely think that's the shift we need to make a difference, because the more people start using those words, I think the more the ripple effect we create, and people start coming to terms that, yes, it's not all about the money. It's not about all the success. It's not about any of that. And so I think this is a perfect time for that.
Yeah.
And with what you said, it kind of says always my last question, but it's like, what makes you tick? I think all the conversation that we've had has guided us to service, But is there anything when you feel down or when you feel a little bit sad, when you feel disconnected, is there any ritual things you do or places you go and you say, yes, this is me, I'm home?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Yes, I take a walk with a friend,
okay.
and I get some exercise, but I find that a conversation with a friend, just like the one we've just had, I find it, and I'm choosing this word very carefully, I find that those conversations are fortifying. They nourish me and make me stronger, healthier, better, more empathetic. But I do find them fortifying.
Wow. Well, thanks for that, because, I get goosebumps because the whole point that this podcast exists is because I feel exactly the same way through empowering conversations, through inspiring conversations. Like every time I had a conversation like this before the podcast, I came home refreshed, renewed with something that I connected to that made me feel good. And that's really how I started this whole thing. And yeah. And sometimes because I'm such a social person, right? That people joke with me because I have so many friends. And so sometimes my husband's like, you have too many friends. And is it because you cannot be alone? And I say, I'm extremely happy when I'm alone. I can, be alone. I took a month when I quit my job. When I was laid off, rather, in 2001, I left 6 months to France on my own, nobody with me, just me and myself. And I enjoyed it very much. So I can be with myself, but I say it's not about if I can be with myself. It's about what fortifies me, the word you said, what inspires me. And I have to say, talking to people and being social and powerful conversations do that for me. So I thank you for that. I don't feel alone in the world anymore. I know I call Marcia and we can have fortifying conversations.
I look forward to the next one. I really do. Leticia, this has been so great. Thank you so very much
Thank you so much for all you do, for sharing your thoughts. And I'm sure the audience really enjoyed these. All the notes from the work Marcia is involved with, it will be in the show notes. So make sure to check it out. And thank you. And until the next episode of Back to Basics. Bye-bye. And until the next time.